Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of CPTSD on the Road to Recovery with Pop Woodman. Today we'll be talking about detrimental or self-defeating behaviors. These are behaviors that those of us with CPTSD exhibit in our lives. What I'm going to share, this is not the whole list. This is a pretty good list, but uh, basically what I'm sharing today is behaviors I've exhibited in my life at one time or another, some when I was a child, some in my adult life uh, throughout the years, and so on. So it's not a definitive list, but some things I wanted to share in case you're considering looking for help for CPTSD. Maybe you will recognize some of these symptoms or behaviors, I should say, detrimental or self-defeating behaviors in your life. Number one, neglect of body and appearance. I've been guilty of that in recent years in particular. Wound up with me making a trip to Mayo Clinic to find out exactly what was causing all my nerve issues and so on and so forth. But it really came down to, I have had too many issues with eating and being extremely overweight for a long time, and it took its toll on my body. So neglecting my body is definitely one of those detrimental or self-defeating behaviors. And the other side of that coin is neglecting your appearance, not bothering to shower today, not brushing your teeth, whatever. This is the kind of behaviors that we exhibit when we're um, under the influence of complex PTSD. Um, it's because with it comes a certain level of depression and so on. So we find ourselves just kind of, today is not the day. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to get dressed up for the day. Not going to shower. I'm just staying home. And that is definitely uh, detrimental to our health. Next one is not seeing my role in my behaviors, blaming others. Um, how that plays out in my life is, I have a problem with emotional dysregulation. At times, I can fly into a rage without any real prompting, but usually I blame it on traffic or people or situations or whatever. Rather than taking the blame for myself, acting the way I did, I try to blame it on others. But at the same time, we have to understand that emotional dysregulation is a neurological disorder, and it takes a lot of time to overcome that. You have to retrain your brain to overcome that. And I'm working on that now myself. Um, but the easy thing to do is to blame others. But the emotional dysregulation is a huge part of CPTSD, that our brains weren't formed exactly the way they should have been from infancy on. And so we're stuck in flight or fight mode. And when we get emotionally dysregulated, those are usually the two choices we're going to make: is I'm going to run, or I'm going to stand and I'm going to fight and I'm going to blame, is part of it for me anyway. All right, number three, black and white thinking. I've been guilty of this pretty much all my life, especially from my teenage years on. Uh, make a lot of blanket statements about situations, about people, about behaviors, things like that. I know sometimes, when I'm teaching one of my Bible classes or something, I'll say, well, we always, and, that's a blanket statement. And just because I do something a lot doesn't mean everybody else does. And I've made those blanket statements, and somebody has said, well, I don't think I fall into that category. And, then I'm having to apologize for bringing everybody into something, me assuming that everybody's got the same issues, but they may not. And then extreme views, probably back in my 30s, heading into my 40s, I had extreme political views. I was very, almost ultra conservative, and it was definitely detrimental to my life. It was, I would listen to talk radio on my way home from work. Had a 45-minute ride, so by the time I actually got home, instead of being relaxed after a day of work, I was upset, I was angry, and not much fun to be around with. And thankfully, my wife pointed that out to me at one point, and I quit the talk radio, and my life has been a whole lot better ever since. The next one, numbing. This is, folks with PTS, complex PTSD, try to find their comfort in or find relief in alcohol, drugs, food, and media. And, you know, back in my teenage years, going into my very early 20s, well, till about 20, I was involved in the drinking and some drugs. Nothing too heavy, but I did them just the same because I just wanted to be numbed out. I didn't want to feel what I was feeling all the time. And later on, uh, food became I quit the drinking and the drugs and started eating. And that was problematic from my 20s on up all the way through till today. I've had bariatric surgery and have lost 88 pounds so far. But, this will always be something I'm going to have to keep an eye on because food is a numbing agent for me. When I'm having a bad day, well, I'll just go get a chocolate bar or something like that. That'll make me feel better. And it does for a couple of minutes, and then you get the sugar crash afterwards, and then you don't feel so hot anymore. But, this is the things that we do. It's in there. Media was one of the ones that we do to numb ourselves. And a lot of people do that with their doom scrolling, just on the internet, on their phone all day long, scrolling through things and so on. Years ago, when we first got the internet, dial-up of all things, I was really on the computer way too much. I'd be on my days off. I'd be at home. My wife would go to work. I'd be on the computer when she left. I'd be on the computer when she came back. And I had just been going all over the internet trying to research stuff, find out what you can actually find and things like that. And that was problematic. And I had to break that habit. So these are some of the things we do to numb ourselves so we don't have to feel what life has dealt us. And you talked about this already, but food addiction, unhealthy dealings with food. And that can run the extremes of eating continuously and becoming morbidly obese, or it can be, anorexic or bulimic behavior around our food addictions. We want the food, it makes us feel good, but then we feel guilty afterwards and we don't want to gain the weight and we got to do something to get rid of it. Or if we know we need to do something about our food addiction, we quit eating in hopes of that taking care of the problem. And if you notice, none of those are good responses, and these turn into really detrimental and self-defeating behaviors. Media and entertainment abuse. I know I already mentioned media, but a lot of us today, we numb out by doing time on the internet or binge watching TV series. I've been guilty of that many times. I get into a series I like and I will just watch episode after episode until I either get through it. If it's a short series, I'll get through it in one day, or I'll just keep coming back to it until I finish the series. And then I'm kind of left deflated, wondering what to do next. And what we're talking about here is losing oneself in these activities, whether it be on Facebook, YouTube, watching TV. We can lose ourselves in that and find ourselves going further and further down the rabbit hole. And that is not beneficial to us. It's detrimental and it's self-defeating. Procrastination. I'd like to say this is one that I've got under control, but I don't always. There's a lot of times I will put off something that I could do right now, but I'll put it off. And the thing is when procrastination with CPTSD, we tend to put off important things. I've shared it on here before, like filing my taxes. I can file at the end of January. I've got everything I need, but I usually wait till the week that taxes are due in April and do them then. It's just one of those things I've always done, and I do that with other activities in my life too. I'm getting a lot better about it, but boy, it is definitely detrimental when you put things off to the point where it becomes very stressful just to get caught up and get it done. Yeah, you know, if you had done it earlier, you wouldn't have been in that situation. Cluttering your environment, that's something that a lot of folks with CPTSD do. Uh, Hoarding, if you will, collecting all kinds of things and saving them up for whatever. A lot of people do that with their environment. Uh, my biggest thing with that is my books and stuff like that. Um, Whether it be in my office, there's times you might come into my office to visit with me, and I've got books stacked up 10 high on my desk because I've been looking into a topic or whatever, and I don't put anything away. I just leave it there. The other place I do that is at home in my living room. I usually have a stack of about 6 books sitting on my end table because I'm going through them for one thing or another. And that's kind of my cluttering mode, and I can have a tendency to let it get away from me in my office. Thankfully, my wife has been working with me lately. She'll come to the office with me before she goes off to do things, and she says, "What can I do to help you today to get things a little more organized and neat around here?" And that really helps me a lot. So this is something you can think of too. Is there somebody in your life that can help you work with these things? It's really beneficial, trust me. Lying or making up stories. Can't say as I do that in my adulthood, but when I was a young kid growing up, I thought if I told great stories and made stories up about myself and my family and places we'd been and the things we'd seen, that people would find me more interesting because we moved constantly when I was growing up. From the time my parents got divorced, we moved back and forth between Connecticut and Pennsylvania, Connecticut and Arizona, multiple towns in Arizona, multiple towns in Connecticut, multiple towns in Pennsylvania as well. So making up stories became a way of trying to make friends. And if you don't know this already, lying, making up stories is not a good way to make friends. The truth comes out eventually and they see you for who you are. And that's not good. So lying certainly is detrimental and self-defeating. Issues at work. Haven't had any of those in recent years. Been in ministry for 21 years now. But there were times when I was younger, especially in my early 20s, where I had issues at work. I didn't get along with coworkers. I didn't get along with my boss in a lot of situations. And like I said, about myself, I've been kind of stuck in fight or flight mode for a long time. So needless to say, in my work environment when I was young in particular, uh, I was very confrontational with people, and didn't go well for me. We'll just keep it there. Agitation and irritability. Yep, certainly detrimental and self-defeating. Being moody and emotional. I've been guilty of that all my life. Uh, when I was a teenager, I was told I was copping an attitude. But the reality was these emotions and these moods that I was feeling were deep-seated in my psyche from a very young age. But these are things we need to work on because they will take over if we're not careful. And it'll cause problems with us and in relationships, friendships, and so on. Avoidance is a big one. Avoiding people and situations. You know, I don't want to go to do that tonight. I'm just going to stay home. I don't want to, I don't want to have to deal with small talk and all that kind of stuff. Avoiding people, because when you're avoiding people, you don't have to feel like you're being judged on how you act and how you talk and how you present yourself and all those things. So it's an easy way to go. I mean, I've always considered myself an introvert because I really don't enjoy big crowds. I don't enjoy going to parties and things where you have to do a lot of small talk and stuff like that, I just as soon not. But being in ministry, you kind of have to. So I've learned to adapt and deal with it, cope with it. But there's times I just want isolation and I just want to be left alone. I don't want anybody around. I just want to either sit and think or read or work on music or art or something. Uh, but even with that, it can turn into avoidance, avoiding the things I need to do or should do. So these are some of the behaviors and detrimental and self-defeating behaviors that I've exhibited in my life at one time or another. Just wanted to share those because you may be going through the same thing. You may have heard things on this list. They go, well, that's me. Yeah, that's what I do. Well, understand that these things are coming from complex PTSD. And a lot of it's coming from emotional dysregulation. And we're trying to numb ourselves out and medicate ourselves in any way we can, just to feel better, even if it's just for a short amount of time. But they're not beneficial to us in the long run. And so part of healing from CPTSD is learning to bring these behaviors into check so that they're not out of control and our lives are better because of it. Well, that's what I wanted to share with you in episode 12. Lord willing, we'll be back together again next week with episode 13. But in the meantime, it's my prayer that anyone looking for healing will find it and that they will enjoy the life that God has blessed them with. Take care. See you soon.